Hi there, and welcome to The Daily Gardener, an almanac of garden history, literature, and small botanical joys. I'm Jennifer Eadling, and today is March 3rd. March 3rd sits right on a hinge. Winter hasn't let go. Spring hasn't fully arrived. But the day is longer. The light is different. It's the kind of light that catches the dust in the potting shed and makes you reach for your gloves, even if the ground is still too hard for a spade, and something in the ground knows it. Today is about how we notice that change, how we name it, how we measure it, and how we remember what matters. Here's today's garden history. It was on this day in 1616 that the Flemish botanist Matthias de Lobel died. Matthias lived during what historians now call the Botanical Renaissance, a time when plants were finally being seen for what they were, not just for what they could cure. Before Matthias, plants were often grouped by superstition, by medicine, or simply alphabetically. Matthias did something radical. He looked at the leaves, their shapes, their veins, their structure. Matthias believed plants should be understood by how they grow, not by what humans hope to extract from them. In doing so, Matthias helped lay the groundwork for one of the most important distinctions in botany: grasses and lilies on one side, broad-leaved plants on the other. What we now call monocots and dicots began with careful looking. Matthias served as the royal botanist to King James I, and tended influential gardens in England, but his life wasn't without friction. He accused John Gerard, the author of the famous herbal, of using his work without credit. And there's a quieter, more human detail I love. Matthias used a visual pun as his personal seal. His books bore an image of two poplar trees, aubles in French, a small botanical wink at his own name, de Lobel. Matthias's legacy still blooms today. The genus Lobelia carries his name, those vivid blue and red flowers that pull hummingbirds close and reward anyone willing to look carefully. Matthias taught gardeners something lasting. If you want to understand a plant, start by looking closely. Matthias reminds us that before a plant is a cure or a decoration or a crop, it is a life. And that life has a signature written right into the veins of its leaves. When we stop to trace a leaf with our thumb, we are talking to the plant in the language Matthias de Lobel helped us learn. And it was on this day, in 1807, that the Belgian botanist Charles Morren was born in Ghent, Belgium. Charles gave gardeners a word we still use, even if we don't always realize it. Phenology is the heartbeat of the garden. It's the internal calendar that tells the crocus to push through the snow and the lilac to hold its breath. It's a science of faith, believing that even in the coldest March, the clock is still ticking toward the bloom. Phenology, it's the study of time in the living world. When the first leaf opens, when a flower blooms, when birds arrive. If you've ever written "first snowdrop" in a notebook, you've been practicing phenology. Charles wasn't just watching the seasons. He was trying to understand how climate, light, and time shape the life of a plant. And then there's vanilla. For centuries, vanilla vines grew in Europe, but never produced fruit. The flowers opened and failed. Charles Morren discovered why. The vanilla orchid depended on a specific Mexican bee. Without it, the flower needed help. In 1836, Charles became the first person in Europe to successfully hand-pollinate vanilla. He proved it could be done. Think of Charles in that glass house, holding a tiny sliver of wood, acting as a surrogate for a bee thousands of miles away. It was a moment of profound intimacy between a man and a flower, a secret shared in the quiet of a Belgian winter. And then he stepped back. Charles didn't patent the method. He didn't profit from it. He remained a teacher. The world would later learn that it was actually a 12-year-old enslaved boy named Edmund Albius who would refine the technique and transform vanilla production forever. But Charles's contribution remains essential. Charles also founded La Belgique Horticole, one of the most beautiful garden journals of the 19th century, a place where science and beauty were allowed to coexist. Charles reminds us that the garden has its own clock, and that paying attention to the timing of the season is one of the quiet disciplines of care. In today's Unearthed Words, we hear an excerpt from the American poet and Pulitzer Prize winner James Merrill, born on this day, March 3rd, in 1926. James was a poet who understood that even the smallest acts of tending are declarations of belonging. James once wrote, "Nor do I try to keep a garden, only an avocado and a glass of water. I am Earth's, no less. A pit, a glass, a beginning." Even that, James Merrill told us, counts. It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, The Seed Keeper by Diane Wilson. This is a novel that changes how gardeners think about seeds. In The Seed Keeper, seeds are not commodities. They are relatives, carriers of memory, objects of responsibility. The story follows Rosalie Ironwing, a Dakota woman whose life is shaped by land, loss, and the quiet act of saving what matters. Women sow seeds into hems, hide them during displacement, carry them through war, boarding schools, and erasure. For gardeners, this book asks a powerful question. What does it mean to plant something knowing it came from someone else's hands? When you press a seed into the soil this spring, remember that you aren't just planting a flower. You are holding a tiny, living baton in a relay race that has lasted for centuries. You are the next chapter in a story that someone else loved enough to keep alive. It's a story about resilience and remembering our original relationship to the earth. And finally, here's something sweet to ignite the little botanic spark in your heart. It was on this day in 1878 that the English poet Edward Thomas was born. Edward was a lover of nature who listened closely to ordinary days. On his birthday, he wrote a poem called March the 3rd, noting that the day held 12 hours for singing for the bird. Not a promise, just a fact. The poem ends this way. This day, unpromised, is more dear than all the named days of the year, when seasonable sweets come in, because we know how lucky we are. Matthias looked at veins to see the science. Edward Thomas looked at the dust on nettles to see the soul. Both were looking for the truth of the plant. But the truth to Edward was simple. Dust on nettles, scents released when a spade cuts a root. That scent, the sharp, cold smell of damp earth and bruised roots, is the true perfume of a gardener's new year. It's the smell of waking up. Edward reminds us that beauty isn't always in bloom. Sometimes it's in the noticing. As we close the show today, remember, whether you are tracing the veins of a leaf like Matthias de Lobel or waiting for the garden's clock to strike spring like Charles Morren, you are part of a long line of people who refused to let the beauty of the world go unnoticed. Gardens speak in many languages: leaves, light, timing, seeds. Some are written down, some are carried forward quietly. And if today feels like a threshold, that's because it is. March 3rd doesn't promise spring, but it does lean toward it. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener. And remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day.